What if everything you've been told about money is about to change? Right now, millions of people are asking one simple question. Is Bitcoin the future? Or is gold still the ultimate safe haven? And when it comes to this debate, very few opinions matter more than Ray Dalio. This is a man who has managed billions of dollars, studied economic cycles for decades, and predicted major financial shifts before they happened. So when he speaks about money, smart investors listen. But here's where it gets interesting. His opinion on Bitcoin versus gold is not what most people expect. Because on one side, you have Bitcoin, digital, decentralized, explosive growth. And on the other side, gold, ancient, stable, proven over thousands of years. Two completely different worlds. One question. Backhand index pointing right, which one actually protects your wealth? Ray Dalio doesn't look at hype. He looks at patterns, history, cycles, and risk. And according to him, we are entering a period where cash is no longer safe. Why? Because governments keep printing money. More money means less value. And that's where real assets come in. For centuries, gold has been the ultimate store of value. Empires have collapsed. Currencies have disappeared. But gold, it survived everything. That's why Dalio has always believed that gold deserves a place in every portfolio. Not all your money, but a meaningful part of it. But then came Bitcoin, and suddenly, everything changed. A digital asset that no government controls, limited supply, global access, and explosive returns. Even Dalio couldn't ignore it. At first, he was skeptical, like many traditional investors. But over time, his views started to evolve. Oh, now the big question is, has Ray Dalio fully accepted Bitcoin? Or does he still trust gold more? Because his answer might completely change how you invest your money. To understand Ray Dalio's view, you first need to understand how he sees the world. Not in terms of trends, but in terms of cycles. Because in his view, everything in the economy moves in cycles. Money, markets, even entire nations. There are times when economies grow, credit expands, people spend more, markets go up, and then, slowly, things start to break. Debt becomes too high, money loses value, confidence drops, and that's when the cycle turns. According to Ray Dalio, we are very close to that turning point. Look around. Governments printing massive amounts of money, rising inflation, increasing global debt. This isn't random. This is the late stage of a cycle. Now think about what happens to your money in this situation. If more money is printed, your cash becomes less valuable. You might feel like you have the same amount, but in reality, you can buy less. That's the hidden tax. And that's exactly why Dalio says, backhand index pointing right, holding only cash is risky. This is where gold becomes important again. Gold doesn't depend on governments. It can't be printed. It doesn't promise anything. It simply holds value. And during uncertain times, that stability becomes powerful. That's why Dalio has always kept gold as a part of his strategy. Not everything, but enough to protect against uncertainty. But here's where things get interesting. Because the world is changing. Technology is changing everything. And for the first time, there's a new type of asset. Backhand index pointing right, Bitcoin. At first, Dalio was cautious. He questioned it. He didn't fully trust it. But over time, he started to recognize something important. Bitcoin has some of the same qualities as gold. Limited supply, not controlled by governments. Global acceptance. And slowly, his stance began to shift. Oh, now we reach the real turning point. Does Ray Dalio see Bitcoin as a replacement for gold, or just an addition? Because what he says next might completely change how you build your portfolio. So, does Ray Dalio believe Bitcoin will replace gold? The short answer is, backhand index pointing right, no. But the real answer is more interesting. Dalio doesn't see investing as choosing one winner. He sees it as balancing risk. Because the biggest mistake most people make is this. They go all in on one idea, one asset, one trend, and when they're wrong, they lose everything. To understand his strategy, you need to see the key difference between gold and Bitcoin. Gold is proven. It has survived wars, inflation, currency collapses. For thousands of years, it's stable, predictable, trusted. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is new, powerful, but still evolving. It has shown massive growth, but also extreme volatility. And that's the key word: backhand index pointing right volatility. Dalio always focuses on one thing: backhand index pointing right. How much can I lose? Not just how much you can gain, because protecting your wealth is more important than growing it fast. And that's why, even though he acknowledges Bitcoin, he doesn't treat it the same as gold. Instead, he sees Bitcoin as backhand index pointing right, a diversifier, something you can include, but not rely on completely. Why? Because governments still have power. Regulation can change everything, and uncertainty is still high. Gold, in contrast, is simpler. No regulation risk, no technology risk, no sudden collapse due to policy. It just exists. And in times of crisis, that simplicity becomes strength. Oh, what does Dalio actually do? He doesn't pick sides. He builds balance. A portfolio that can survive inflation, deflation, growth, recession, because no one knows what comes next. So here's the real question. If you had to build a portfolio today, backhand index pointing right, how much should go into gold? Backhand index pointing right, how much into Bitcoin? And what is the safest strategy in an uncertain world? Because in the final part, we're going to break down exactly what Ray Dalio would do if he were starting today. So, if Ray Dalio were starting today, what would he actually do? Not theory, not hype, but a real, practical strategy. The first thing he would focus on is simple. Backhand index pointing right. Don't bet everything on one outcome, because the future is uncertain, and the people who survive financially are not the ones who guess right. They are the ones who are prepared for anything. Instead of chasing the next big thing, he would build a balanced portfolio, a mix of assets that react differently to different economic conditions. Because when one goes down, another goes up. That's how you stay protected. Gold would still play a key role. Why? Because in times of crisis, gold tends to hold its value. It acts as a hedge against inflation, currency devaluation, economic uncertainty. Not exciting, but powerful. Bitcoin would also have a place, but not as the foundation, as an opportunity, a small portion with high potential upside, something that could grow significantly, but won't destroy your portfolio if things go wrong. And this is the biggest lesson from Ray Dalio. Backhand index pointing right, it's not about being right. Backhand index pointing right, it's about not being wiped out. Because once you lose everything, you're out of the game. Most people invest based on emotion, fear, greed, hype. But real investors think differently. They think in probabilities. They think in risk. They think long-term. So when you ask, backhand index pointing right, Bitcoin or gold? The real answer is neither alone. The smartest move is balance. Because in a world full of uncertainty, balance is power. If you found this video valuable, backhand index pointing right, like this video. If you want to learn more about money, investing, and financial freedom, backhand index pointing right, subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments, backhand index pointing right, would you choose Bitcoin or gold? And if you think someone needs to understand this, backhand index pointing right, share this video with them.